So we're returning to the bones of Yosef, and we started to explain how this concept of Yosef is connected with the month of Shvat. Why?
Because of the way you count the months.
Exactly. The 11th month is connected with the 11th born from Yaakov, which is Yosef. So this whole month of Shvat is a Yosef month. And we further went and said that every month has its own tziruf of the Shem Havaya, a different combination of the 4 letters of God's name. And each one of those has a certain pasuk in the Torah, which is an acronym for that particular combination of Hashem's 4-letter name, which is kind of an amazing thing that you should anyway just know. It's very cool to look into the month that you're living in and find out which combination it is, and then go further and understand which pasuk has that name of God sort of hidden inside of it. And we said in this month, there's a particular pasuk, which I only took out 3 of these, but if each side of the table wants to turn to page 237 and pass it around, you just see it inside. It's the Chumash. You've seen this book before, but the pasuk that we're dealing with, which has the month of Shvat hidden inside of it, can be found at the end of Parshas Bechukosai, which is actually the very end, the idea of the Chazak, V'nis Chazek, essentially Parshas of the Sefer Vayikra. But I do want to point out something which the Sikha doesn't say, but if I didn't mention it, I'd be hiding the secrets of Torah from you. I won't do it. 372. What did I say? 372. Sorry. So if you look at page 372 and you look at Pasuk Lamed Beis, right? This is discussing the laws of Meiser Behema. Every animal, you have to give it the 10th animal to Hashem, right? Give it to the Kohen. And it says, Pasuk Lamed Beis, Kol Meiser Bakar Batzon, Kol Asher Yavor Tachas Hashavet Hasiri Yeh Kodesh Lavaya. Does anyone remember we spoke about this on Shabbos? There's a little secret hiding inside of this pasuk. Remember what it is? Yeah?
We mark the 10th animal with a...
Okay, but yes, that's the meaning of the pshat. But there's remember we spoke about Yud Shvat Mina Torah Minayin. Spoke about it on Shabbos. Not everyone stays for the Farbrengen. But right, everything in Jewish history, everything in reality has some source in the Torah. Where do we find Yud Shvat written in the Torah? I'll give you a clue. It's in this verse. Can anyone see the word Yud Shvat in this pasuk? It says, Kol asher yavor tachas hashavet. That's how you spell Shvat. Ha'asiri yeh kodesh la'Hashem. It literally says the 10th of Shvat is holy to God. I mean, it's next level, right? What's crazier, which is if you go to the next pasuk, it is the pasuk in which the combination of Yud Kei Vav Kei is found for the month of Shvat. Is that insane? I mean, if that alone does not prove God, I don't know what does. It's totally crazy. And we're going to read the next sentence, right? It says, Lo yevaker ben tov l'ra. You cannot basically determine the difference between good and bad, meaning to say if the 10th is the 10th, whatever pops out. V'lo yemirenu, and you can't switch the kedusha of the 10th, right? Because the way it goes is you pass 10 different animals. The 10th one, you kind of goes under the rod. You say, it's that one. You can't switch it for good and bad. And the idea of a tamura, which we spoke about yesterday, is the idea of trying to confer kedusha from that animal to another. You can't do it. And that's what this pasuk says, lo yemirenu. You cannot switch the kedusha. And then here's where it gets interesting. V'im hamer yemirenu v'hayahu usmurasu yeh kodesh lo yigael. If you will do the switching, it and its what is it? The other one that you tried to switch it with will both be holy, right? And you can't undo it. So you kind of get penalized for trying to switch the holiness. Not only is the 10th one holy, you tried to switch the holiness of the 10th one to some other one. You accomplished putting holiness on both of them, which means now neither of them belong to you, right? They belong to Hashem. The only Inyan is that this pasuk, when it says Hamer Yemirenu V'hayahu, you'll notice that the Rosh Tevos of those 4 words is Hey, and then Yud, Vav, Hey, which is the combination of Havaya for the name for the month of Shvat. The pasuk that comes right after a pasuk which literally says the 10th of Shvat is holy to God. I find that to be startling. Hey, Yud, Vav, and Hey.
Which word?
Hamer, Yemirenu, Vahaya, Hu. Okay? So that's looking inside. Oh, excuse me. That's looking inside there.
Wow.
Let's go back to the Sikha.
Where did you find that?
I found it in the 5 books of Moses.
Just by looking at it?
No, the Rebbe speaks about it right here. He doesn't speak about the 10th of Shvat. I heard that from Alec Friedman. They call him the Beinani. Okay, anyway, so fine. Going on, we're going to start on page 105, and we discussed that this Hamer Yemirenu Bahayahu, right? Which means if you do the transference, it and its counterpart will both be holy. And there you have Hey, and then Yud, Vav, and Hey, Shvat. L'chora, second paragraph down, Darush Hesber, we need explanation on this. Everything in Torah is exactly exacting. Be'im kach, and if so, where's your copy? If so, tzrich lomar, we have to say, shamilim hemer yimirenu b'hayahu, those very words, which means that you transfer and it too is holy. Hamahave es atziruv shel shem havaya shebechodesh Shvat. Those 4 words are the combination of Hashem's name for this month. And they're connected, obviously, to the meaning of this pasuk. It's not just that we found a handy place where those 4 letters happen to be in this order. It's also that there's a meaning to those 4 words, right? Which also is going to then have the symbol and the meaning of the month of Shvat and Yosef. Ve'ein muvan. We don't understand. If you look at the whole pasuk, it says you should not switch from good and bad. Don't make a transference from one to the other. It's actually a negative commandment. You can get lashed for such a thing. To the point that it says, anyone who does it gets lashed. And then only what? The pasuk goes on to say, and if you will do this transference, then it and its counterpart will become holy. But in other words, we're holding here in the month of Shvat 4 letters in a funny part of the pasuk, which is essentially telling you to do the transference, even though the purpose of this pasuk is to not do the transference, and you get lashed if you do.
Right.
So what's going on with Shvat here? We're saying that the month of Shvat is with specifically these 4 letters. Those as an independent, take them out of the pasuk. You read them on their own, it's going to send you spinning in the wrong direction, because if you take those 4 words out and read them on their own, they have the exact opposite connotation than the pasuk in general, right? It's coming to tell you as though that's a positive thing, something you should do. The words say you shall do the transference. If you just cut out those 4 letters, 4 words. Yoser Mikain, page 106. Yoser Mikain, Kitzivoy. It's not only is it telling you that it's a thing, it's like commanding you. If you just take those 4 letters, Heimir Yimirenu, it's telling you the exact opposite. Transfer the Kedusha. If you just take out that snippet. Totally the opposite. Say at the time when the simple meaning of the verse, but it's trying to tell you in this verse is the exact opposite. That you're not allowed to do it. The real crux of the verse is lo yamirenu. And here we're pulling out, you shall surely do the hamira, right? Tamura. So we have to explain according to everything we've been saying and we know about Yosef and Shvat. That mashmus shel musag hatamura ba'avoda ruchni. What does it mean to do a tamura, a little switcheroo in its spiritual connotation, right? Shemimirim davar echad ba'acher, that you basically switch one thing for another thing. What is that spiritual connotation? Shahovchim davar shu chulin lekadusha. And what's the idea? That you take something which is not holy and you make it holy. Even, right? You're not allowed to do it, But nonetheless, if you would try to go and take the Kedusha and do a Tamura, it means you take something which is whole and you put Kedusha onto it. You make the mundane holy. V'zoa mashmu shel Yosef. Hello. Goes very well with Yosef being the 11th month, 11th child, because Yosef Hashem li ben acher. That from an acher you make a ben. This is what we've been saying the whole time. Right? From this like dark world of Klippa and the Sitra Achra, you can do a Tamura and you can turn it into a ben. So it's actually uncanny, the perfection of the Torah, that even though it's like sort of cheating the verse into saying something else, it happens to be exactly what the Indian of Shvat and Yud Shvat, right? Yosef's Yurtzeit, mind you, Yosef Yitzchak is all about. Ba'avoda shel afichas ha'acher leben. When it comes to turning the acher into a ben, nidreshes yiridah l'chol. You have to, in order to do this, you have to go down. You can't just make something mundane into something holy unless you yourself have a descent. Remember we said that you have to. They brought the bones of Yosef, the essence of Yosef, which then enabled Yoshua to do what? Go fight Amalek. Where was Amalek? Outside the cloud, right? So this ability to basically make something which is other into a ben requires you to leave the cloud. It requires you to have a yerida. Betoch arba amos shel Torah shel tefillah, leaving the Torah, leaving the davening, going out of the yeshiva. Yeah. That's what we said. Right? That's the whole connection. That the end of the parsha was connected with the beginning of the parsha. Dafka, he was a descendant of Yosef. That's what made him have the power to go out and fight this battle. He had the Atzmos Yosef with him. To let's say michutz la'anan, to go outside of the cloud, as we said above. Go find yourself in the place where the acher is. And there, in his place, to do this move, that you have to turn the other into a holy, obvious son. V'zo tamura. This is what's called the tamura, tamura mitzara mashpia. In other words, what we're really saying, where's the concept of tamura here, is that you have to go machlif es makomo. You have to go out of your place, the yotze the reshus harabim, and like basically leave your holy place and go into the area of what's called the reshus harabim, which is the world of multiplicity, which is we don't see the achdus of Hashem. V'sham hu gorem tamura etzel acher, and when you go and move out of your place, you can then also cause a transference of the acher and turn him into a ben. Al kain, al kach, misoras atayna. And since this is basically what's being demanded over here of the month of Shvat, and it's sitting there in the tziruf of the Shem Havaya, telling you to go out of the cloud, remember I told you guys often, the Rabbi has like some guy who's going to make some protest. You wouldn't want to be that guy because he trashes this guy, but he says, you'll claim, therefore, right? Medua alav l'tzeis mi'arba amos shelo, right? You're asking yourself, why should I go out of my Daled Amos? Arba Amos shel kedusha. I'm doing good. I'm living the holy life. I've got it worked out. I did tshuva, and I'm supposed to now l'tzeis l'reshus harabim. And I'm going to now go out of this whole holiness that I found for myself, kedei lechapes acher, to go find some acher who's like this loser, he can't even stay in the cloud. Lahofcha leben, and turn him into a son. Mutav sheishem ba'amos arba amos shel kedusha. I'd rather stay in my daled amos of holiness. Ubemiyuchad toin hu, particularly this guy is going to claim sheyitzia krucha b'nisayon. Let me tell you, Hashem, this is breaking your own rules. Because going out of this cloud is going to put me into a absolute sure test, right? Remember that's what we said. Why do we need the power of Yosef to go out into the midbar, if you recall? Because in the midbar you're going to find midbar gadol va'anora, right? And then there's nachash and srafim and akrav and everything you don't want. And not just physically, but spiritually. It's a place where you will be tested, and it's like a dark, dark spiritual reality. And you're telling me now to go out into there? I finally found myself in the cloud. It's clearly tied up with being tested. And what do we say every single day before davening? Al tiviyenu lo lidei nisayo. We literally pray every morning. Do not bring me to a test. We're begging Hashem, don't test me. David HaMelech asked Hashem to test him. It didn't go well. So from that point on, we say, please don't test me. And here, you're telling me that I have this koach of Yosef, it's Shvat, I'm going to learn Kabbalah and the Rosh Tables, now I'm going to running out into a test. If I'm told every morning to pray, I shouldn't be brought to a test. Certainly I shouldn't throw myself into a situation where there's a test. And therefore the Torah comes and answers this fellow. Yes, normally I agree with you. But this is not normal times. In a situation where it's what's called temidim kasidram, you know what that means? Musafim kihil chasam. You ever hear this before? Where every single Shabbos we say this in the davening of Musaf, right? There's this idea of temidim kasidram, which means what is a tamid? Oh, what is the what is the yeah? But what is the tamid? It's talking about the carbon tamid, and you bring it when. You bring it in the morning, Bein Arbaim, you bring it in the afternoon. And when do you bring it? Which days do you bring it? Every single day, no matter what happens. There's never a day you don't bring it. On Shabbos, on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Purim, Sukkot, there's no day. Because it's Tamidim, Kesidram. And they go according to their Seder. There's a certain way of acting, which is the normal way, which is how Hashem designed the world. And therefore, if things are going in a normal way, then you don't need musafim. What does musaf mean? Not the normal way. It's an ad, right? And when it comes to musaf, we don't say kesidr, we say kehil chasam, which means the need of halicha, going. You have to get on the road. Sometimes there's an unusual reality that you have to face. True, you don't go out of the cloud when everything is tamid and kesidran, when everything is normal and going well, right? And therefore, there's a law, lo yumirenu. You cannot start transferring Kedusha. You're going to get lashed if you start playing games when everything is normal. You're not allowed to go out of the cloud just willy-nilly because you feel like it. If everything's as it should be, you don't make any of these transfers. That's Seder HaRagil. That's the normal way. In other words, when there's a Beis HaMikdash, when the Jewish people are on our land, and everything is going hunky-dory, and we could just go and offer sacrifice and everything's good. Kasher roim Yehudi b'midbar. But if you happen to see a Jew sitting in the midbar, and he's sitting there with snakes and scorpions and no water, and he's screaming out to Hashem, that's not a normal situation. But midbar ha'amim, it's the nation's desert, right? He's lost in the nation's desert. You're going to leave him there. But matzav shesakanas nefashos, he's drowning. He's starving. And you're not talking about one yid in the desert. You're talking about many, many, many Jews in the desert. Then guess what? You go out of your normal conduct. This is crazy. You have to save people's lives. And you stop learning and you stop davening. And you have to go out and fulfill a much bigger mitzvah. Which is pasha to save people's lives. Right? And to go out and save people's lives is a bigger mitzvah. It's musafim. It's not a regular thing. Now here comes your guy again. He's going to come back and say, but Rabbi, I don't want to go out and do that because I'm afraid for myself. You're right? People are drowning, but I don't want to drown. Right? You know what the Torah calls this guy? You don't want to know. A chassid shote. He's called a foolish chassid. He thinks he's a chassid. He's an idiot. And what's the principle of a chassid shote? He says, kasher meduber. In other words, the Gemara Sota, maybe other places as well, it defines a chassid shota, like a mamash, someone who thinks he's righteous and he's the biggest idiot. He's a fool. And what is the definition of such a person? It says, ish or isha, tinok v'tinokes, hatovim banar. There could be a man or a woman, a child, a baby, or a boy or a girl, and chas v'chalil, they're drowning in the river. And certainly, they're in a situation, if they're drowning in the river, physically, they're also drowning. It's referring to drowning in the spiritual river, right? In other words, a chassid shota is someone who decides that he's so frum that he will not go and save the woman from the drowning river because he can't touch a woman. What are you going to do? Sorry, I'm shomer nagia. Meanwhile, the woman's drowning, so he's using his Torah knowledge over here to be the biggest fool you can be. right? And he in other words, he's calling himself a chassid, right? And really, he's nothing more than a shota because he's letting this person die because he's such a chassid. And this is what's called a chassid shota. So this same guy, unfortunately, is us. You think you're going to be safe in the yeshiva, you move to Sfas, you make your holy home, and meanwhile, there's everyone you know didn't make it into the cloud, right? Not one Jew, all the Jews you ever met growing up. And they're all mamash drowning physically and even more so spiritually. He's about to say that the physical, the law of a chassid shota is talking about a person who's only drowning physically. But we know, kasha machtiu Yosef horgo. It's worse, it's considered worse to make a person sin than to kill him, right? In other words, it's a much greater sakana that these Yidden are in. Even though they could be sitting in a Lamborghini, driving down celebrating the Super Bowl, they're spiritually in dire straits, right? And therefore, what's the law? Chayavi, Mr. Chassid, la roots. You have to run and save this guy's life without any calculations. You don't sit and say, I'm busy with my daf Gemara, right? The Rebbe's training a generation over here, right? It's not such a simple thing to realize how you're supposed to be Jewish in a world which is drowning around you. Maybe just cloister yourself in and save yourself. Many, many, many wanted to do that. Thank God we were saved. The Rebbe had a different idea. Don't be a chassid shota. And if you don't go and close your book and go start saving people, not only you're not a chassid, in other words, you're just a regular, no, right? You're not just a chassid that's not a chacham, right? In other words, you're not going the Hasidic way, which is called lifnim mishur asadin. You do the extra mile. You're just a regular guy. No, much worse than that. You're the opposite of keeping the law. You're not a chassid at all. Your mom is a sinning Jew, and it's a very, very serious sin called pikuach nefesh, saving a life. Right? You can't leave the Jews in the desert outside the cloud. In other words, mitzad ad-din, you cannot do that. You cannot call yourself a religious person and leave those Jews drowning in the desert. It doesn't work like that. Go look at the Torah again. You don't want to be a chassid shota. So everybody, you're hearing this from the Rebbe, you're like changing your plans, right? All of a sudden, if you want to keep the Torah, be a religious Jew, you better like get organized in some type of a running out of the cloud as fast as you can type of life, right? Because otherwise, you're not keeping any Torah. You're a chassid shota. Kasher misnagim ba'ofen shel. When you conduct yourself in the following way, mitzad v'al pi horas Torah. Right? And by the way, just to point out, this little secret is hidden inside of the same pasuk that tells you not to leave the cloud when things are going well, right? It's like a secret, and it's a shvat. It's like a little hello, but if it's shvat and you're kept hopping onto Yosef and yud shvat, the pasuk that comes right after it, then you have to realize that this is not a normal time. And we have to read the verse starting and stopping in a little bit different place than you would normally thought. So he says, when a person conducts themselves in this way, according to Torah, including the fact that a Yid will actually go down a level, right? Right? So the Rebbe does make a good point. He says, okay, you're going to start opening a Chabad house. You're going to go start saving Yidden. So I got to give you a little bit of a warning. It says he brings just from another place. It's kind of a famous word from the Rebbe from Pirkei Avos. He says you should be like the Talmidim of Aaron, Oev Shalom, Rodev Shalom, Oev Sabrios Umakarvin La Torah. You should love peace, pursue peace, love the creation, and bring them close to Torah. What is the Rebbe's word over here? That you should love even the Brios. What does the Brios mean? Brios means creations. But what is it referring to? It's talking about people. You should go love people. Why is it calling people creations? Because it's talking about people that have nothing going for them except that God made them. They're the lowest, scum of the earth. God bless them, our Jewish brothers and sisters. They're those that are called Brios, because you can't say one nice thing about them except for that. And meanwhile, you're Oev Shalom and Rodev Shalom. You're running after these Brios, like the Rebbe says here. But what does it say you're supposed to do? Makarvan la Torah. It says you shall bring them to the Torah, and the Rebbe points out, do not bring the Torah to them. Don't water down the Torah just because you're going outside the cloud. You keep the mama's strictest letter of the law of the Torah, and you bring them to it, not it to them. Right? So it's a story. One time the Frierdiker Rebbe, I'll finish with this because we're out of time. One time the Frierdiker Rebbe, but in America already, was summoned to a meeting of the minds of what are we going to do with this forsaken country where Judaism is basically getting lost on everybody. And each one came with their ideas how we're going to preserve Judaism. And the Frierdiker Rebbe came with his Chabad ways, where basically we're going to keep the most pristine, perfect Torah, and we're not going to change one letter because it's mamash from Hashem. We're not going to start making any, what he says here, pasharos and compromises with the Torah. So they said, Lubavitcher Rebbe, if a house is burning down and you have a bucket of water there, you don't have to look and see if the water is clean, the water is dirty. Whatever water you have, just throw it on there. And they were trying to convince him that you don't have to have such a standard of Torah with these types of people. And he said what? He said, that's true if it's water in the bucket, but if it's kerosene in the bucket, so basically you can't mess with the Torah. If you try and change the Torah, you think you're going to change one little tiny letter, you're going to burn the whole place down. That's not how this works. You have to go out to the cloud, but simultaneously you have to go out of the cloud with the exact perfect Torah and carve them to the Torah, not the other way around. You don't change anything about the Torah mitzvahs on your journey down to the Acher. And we will